Welcome to another episode of It Had to Be Said podcast, where we say out loud what you think in private. No topic is off limits. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about accountability. A few episodes back, I did an episode called It's Not What You Said, It's How You Said It. And one of my listeners sent me an audio that describes there's an actual term for that, and it's called tone policing. Listen to this.
Has anyone ever told you that you're 100% right about what you're saying, but they rejected it because they didn't like how you said it? This pathetic excuse to ignore the truth actually has a name. It's called tone policing, which is a type of ad hominem logical fallacy. Because when people can't handle the truth, they try to change the subject by attacking you personally. And when someone attacks the tone of your voice instead of your actual argument, it only proves that they can't refute your argument. Tone policing is a cheap trick that people use to derail and control a conversation, protect their ego, and avoid accountability.
So what it really comes down to is people who do that, they just don't want to accept accountability or just admit that they were on the wrong side of the fence. And I often talk about stuff like that. You can be having a discussion or a conversation with someone and they have a completely different point of view than you. Like I always like to say, you're on one side of the fence and they're on the other side of the fence. And during the process of that conversation, you're putting out facts, you're putting out information. And there are some people that are mature and big enough or even intelligent enough to simply say, you know what, I didn't understand that, or I didn't look at it from that perspective. And they're able to acknowledge that and cross the fence and come onto your side. And it's not necessarily about trying to convince somebody to come to your side. It's when you have discussions, it's really to come to an understanding. But some people, they just cannot do that. And so they go to that defense, they go to that tone policing defense, which is, I don't like the way you said that, or I don't like the way, it came off. And the reason why I brought this up at the very beginning of this podcast is because I'm going to be talking about accountability, and I will be talking about some very sensitive subjects today. I'll be adding the links to these stories into the description of this podcast. The first thing that I want to talk about is SA, sexual assault, right? So we have a gentleman, he's running for governor of California, and now all these articles are coming out about, him improper sexual behavior and also sexual assault allegations coming out against him. Because of that, he dropped out the race. His campaign basically dropped the race. And I have no doubt that he slept with these women. The proof is there, right? So that's sexual misconduct. Married man. But here's the thing that I have not an issue with, but this is some of the things that I question, and I say as a society we should question. One of the young women, they worked for him, and she said, well, when I was working for him as an aide, because he was a congressman at the time, when I was working for him as an aide, we went out to dinner. It was about four or five of us. We went out to drinks. We had a lot to drink. And then afterwards, I got in the car with him, a taxi with him, and we went back to his hotel room. I woke up the next morning and he said he had an awesome time and I don't remember anything. All right. Then she said she ended up leaving the office. She got another job. And about 3 years later or 2 years later, she's now seeing someone. And the same congressman, he was at an event speaking, and she saw him, and they went out for drinks again. And after they drank at the first bar, they went to the second bar, and they went drinking. And then she went back to his hotel, and she woke up the next morning, and she felt like they had sex. She said she don't remember having intercourse with him, but she could flash back between the little flashbacks in her head. She could remember saying no. And from that point, she didn't say anything. So now here we are, and that happened, I believe, in 2022. Now here we are in 2026, and he's running for governor, and she said, well, I wanted to speak up because I heard he slept with other women inside of his office, and I heard that there are other victims that say that they were assaulted by him as well. Now, there was another young lady that actually worked for him. She sent him a picture of herself in a bathing suit and said in a text message, do you like this bathing suit? Do you like the way I look? And he said, absolutely, I like the way you look, and made some other comments in regards to that. Now, keep in mind, this guy's a congressman. He has money. He's pretty young. He's a good-looking guy. He's a pretty good-looking guy. Granted, he's married. Granted, he's in a position of power. Granted, he's their boss. But we live in America. This is not a country like a third world country where you have to sleep with a man in order to get a job, right? These are well-educated women, and there are laws in place. If they felt uncomfortable, they didn't want to be there, they could have filed reports against them. And I know some people are going to say, well, some victims, they're afraid that, their names may get out, but their names are out now. And I understand like the sensitivity behind it, but these are not children. These are not 19-year-olds. These are grown women with careers, women that can find jobs in other places. And these are women and this is a woman, the first woman is somebody who actually went out to have drinks with him, got drunk, slept with him, and 3 years later go out and do the exact same thing while she's in a relationship. But then she sends out these texts and said, I was sexually assaulted to her parents and to her friends. Where does personal accountability come into play? At what point is it that, we as a society are going to sit there and say, okay, look, we're not in a third world country. We're not in a country where women are being oppressed. We're not in a heavily religious country or where women don't have any rights or cannot speak up. I mean, we've seen athletes like the baseball player. He lost $100 million deal just because somebody said who he was in a relationship with, and he was able to provide texts and say, look, this person was asking me to have rough sex with them, and he lost $100 million deal. And even after they found out he was innocent, they did not want to take him back into the league. It was hard for him to get a job. So we live in a society where women can make accusations like that. And with what's happening right now with the Me Too movement, and even before that, it was kind of like, okay, once you make the accusation, you're the victim, and the guy has to prove his innocence. Now, granted, like I said before, absolutely misconduct. This guy was married. He was their boss, had no business sleeping with them. But at the same time, we have to sit there and say, this is a young guy, good-looking guy in a position of power. Are women attracted to that? And these women, they were sending him text messages, they were sending him photos, they were going out to drink with him, and now they're trying to say that they were sexually assaulted. It makes me very uncomfortable as a man and also as a father of a male to sit there and say, it makes me uncomfortable and makes me worry, because I sit there and say, my son could be in a relationship with somebody, or not even be in a full-blown relationship with somebody, but just be dealing with somebody, because most guys, or not most guys, but yeah, I'll probably say most guys go through a phase where they have like a side piece or a girl that they're just messing with, but it's not really serious during a dating phase or whatever the case may be. Most relationships go through that, and some of them make it into becoming a full-blown relationship, and some of them don't. So what's going to stop a woman from saying, I slept with him a couple of years ago, and yeah, I was assaulted, or I didn't feel comfortable, and I want charges brought against him. It's the same thing like with what's happening right now with P. Diddy, the rapper, right? So let's keep in mind, this guy's a rock star, right? And I say a rock star, and he's literally, I believe, just about to hit $1 billion, right? 100 millionaire. He has fame. Women are literally chasing him down, right? And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people become rock stars or celebrities as far as men, right? Because they get all these extra perks. Now they sleep with a couple of these girls, and now a girl's turning around and saying, well, no, I felt like I was sexually assaulted, but that's what's happening with some celebrities. But here's the worst part here's the crazy part with the Diddy case. He literally hired strippers and hired girls who work in the adult industry, and these same women said because he was in a position of power and he was who he was, they felt pressured to do the services that they were being paid for, even though the average Joe or any other person can pay them for the same services. But because he is who he is, they felt pressured, and they're suing him. Not only did he go to jail, but now they're suing him in civil court, and they're trying to make millions off of him for that. So where does personal accountability come into place? Now, granted, I'm not saying that we shouldn't believe women when they say that, but I think that the onus has to be put on women to sit there and say, look, if something happens, there are laws in place. If you are assaulted, somebody, does something to you, you can go to the police station, you can call 911, you can file those reports right away. But it's extremely difficult for us as a society to come and arrest somebody based on your words for something that happened 3, 4, 5 years ago, when all of the DNA evidence is gone. There's really hardly any way for us to track it. Now, granted, if there's video information, if there's certain types of information that's out there, if there's evidence that's out there, yeah, we can file the case, but we cannot do anything just on hearsay. Now, the gentleman who was running for governor who canceled his campaign, misconduct, guaranteed. And there may be proof out there that he actually sexually assaulted someone, because obviously the guy has a high sex drive. And but I think that for a woman to feel that comfortable to come on national television and to say, I went out to drink with this guy who I worked for, who was my boss, good-looking guy, and has money and power, and we slept together, I said nothing. And then 2 years later or 3 years later, I see him at a conference. I went out to drink with him again, not only at one bar, but at 2 bars. And then we went back to his hotel voluntarily, and then we had sex. And I felt like at that point I said no, and I felt I was sexually assaulted. Once you see that type of behavior and people are able to come on television and have no worries about it, no concerns about it, and they can just do that and just feel like everybody's going to stand behind them. And I feel like we've reached a point where, it's kind of like the Black Lives Matter movement, where even if a person commits a crime, even if the black person's shot in the process of committing a crime, then they feel like the community should stand behind them and, forget about the crime that I was committing. Just remember that I got shot by this white police officer, so stand by me. I feel like that's the same mindset, like entitlement and privilege. Like they should just be believed because of who they are. I'm not going to ramble on about that, but like I said before, if there is actual evidence and there is a sexual assault, I think he should go to jail. But I think that there should be a level of accountability put on women as well, to sit there and say it's really difficult for us as a society to ruin and destroy somebody's life over something that you did not only once, not only twice, but 3, 4, 5 times, and voluntarily. And now you want to say that it was sexual assault, maybe because the relationship didn't work out. There's a great clip from, I believe the show is like Grey's Academy, but it's like a medical show. And I'm going to play the audio here. I think it's absolutely funny, right? So let me set this up for you. In this clip, one of the doctors, she brings in all of the nurses and all of the other female doctors and female nurses and CNAs into one room, and she goes, look, and she's pointing at the doctor, who's a very good-looking doctor. She said, look, this guy is a whore. Everybody knows that he's a whore. So, if you guys, but he's a good doctor. He's a great doctor. He's nasty. He's a nasty whore, but he's a great doctor. But if you guys just keep your legs closed, then you won't have to worry about him messing with you and then sleeping with somebody else and messing with somebody else, And I think that's a really, really good clip to sit there and say, take personal accountability for your own actions. Take a listen to this.
This man is a whore. Has always been a whore. Will probably always be a whore. But, that's not a secret. He's not keeping it hidden. You all knew who he was before you got involved with him. And now you want to be all, woe is me. He doesn't call me back. He's dating other women. He's nasty. And that's not just you. He's sleeping with other doctors and orderlies and cafeteria workers. But he's a doctor here, and a pretty good one. So let us all close our knees and get back to our job so he can get back to his job and help the people that really need it.
Thank you for listening and supporting my podcast. I would love to hear your thoughts on this particular episode. You can leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening to my podcast on. If there's a topic or viral video you'd like for me to cover, you can DM me on Instagram at It Had to Be Said Podcast. I post new episodes Tuesday and Thursday at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.